All right, true crime grapevine fans. This is me, Patti Lee. We are on to our court cases. We're still in the cases. We're not in anybody who's at trial yet. This is the story of Let me tell you a story. This is Charles Adelson, who is being charged with being a co-conspirator, actually hiring a hitman that killed his sister's husband. Again, this is a custody issue. Custody is more of a motive than people, I think, realize. Dan was shot in 2014 in his North Florida driveway. Wendy Adelson was his wife. They had separated. She wanted the boys to live in South Florida with her and her family, but they had custody issues because Dan and she had lived in North Florida, and they were supposed to, in Tallahassee, I believe it was, and stay there. This was a case that was covered by Over My Dead Body, a Wondery podcast, a serial one. You should definitely go listen to that if you're interested in this case. So Charlie was her brother. He's their family had this fabulous dentist practice. The grandfather, Wendy, and Charlie's dad is a dentist. Charlie is a dentist, and Charlie, he helped out. Apparently, allegedly, he was having an affair with one of the either office workers. I don't know if she was a hygienist or if she just was an office manager person. Her name was Catherine. She apparently found connected with her ex, who agreed to do this hit up in Tallahassee and took a friend with him. And so the two shooters were eventually located through, following the car. The car, there were, what do you call it? They have ways of figuring out what cars, what phones were in the area. They followed them through the check marks, like on the highways where you pay tolls. So they got all the way to the shooters. They flipped the shooters, figured out that the shooters gave up the Adelsons and who connected them, which was Catherine. And she just went to jail. She was sentenced. Her first trial was a mistrial. Her second trial, they convicted her. And so they worked their way up, right? This is a conspiracy. It takes a really long time. First you get the people who actually did the down and dirty, usually the lower people who did the violence. Then you get the people who were part of the conspiracy. So they're looking at Charlie and they're looking at Wendy still, but Charlie has been, Wendy is still a consideration because she was the one who wanted her husband dead, they say. Charlie is the one who actually seems to have ordered and paid for it through Catherine, who's in jail. So now Charlie, he just had a bond hearing. So this is very cute. His attorney tried to explain to the court. Tell me what you think about this. Look, Charlie's not a flight risk because since this all went down, he has gone, I kid you not, he lists. I can tell you, I haven't been out of the country since I was in my 20s, and then I went into Canada. That's before you even needed anything. I don't leave the United States. So this man is trying to convince the court that his client isn't a flight risk by saying, well, he's been to, and I kid you not, and returned, been to and returned. Before he was a suspect, he has traveled and returned from. So before he was a suspect still. Croatia, Slovenia, Spain, the Philippines, Colombia, Thailand, South Korea, Costa Rica, Mexico, and San Martin. So a lot of those, what's he traveling to all those places for? And some of them sound a little sketch, and that he returned before he was a suspect, and he's rich, and they're like, oh, no, but he has roots here, and I even think they said, does he have a wife? That's what I'm trying to see if he has a wife that, or if he's a single guy. That's what I can't. Because they said they pointed out that his family is located in South Florida, but it's not all of his family. He has another brother, in fact, a brother who turned on him and was helping the police. So, and he lives, I believe, in Georgia or in the Carolinas. So here's what's problematic. I wrote down. So Charlie made a statement that was heard on surveillance that he was talking to Catherine. He said, "Look, I don't think that, like he was saying, they don't have anything. If they had anything, if they had any evidence, we would have already gone to the airport. Like basically, if I knew they were on to us, we'd be gone." Good, Charlie. Sounds good. So yeah. And they said technically he had no legal trouble before, but they know a prominent judge in the area, and he did have things that seemed to have been like a little wiped clean under the table. Just things like just a little slight drug possession. Let's see, what else did he do? Steroid use. Insider trading, lying to the police, falsification of patient records, and he talked a lot about automatic weapons. Just the usual. So, and supposedly he cheated in dental school. He just seems to be somebody, one of those rich people who they don't have to play by the rules because they know the powerful people. I don't know, what is this reminding you of? Is it reminding you of maybe our next case, which is the Murdoch? Is one of our cases coming up? Does it remind you of the Murdochs? That whole idea of we're above the law, we can do what we want, don't worry, and if we think we're getting in trouble, we'll just go to the airport. So, do you think they thought he was a flight risk? Yes, obviously. So yeah, he was denied bail. And he was considered a threat to the community and a flight risk. And there's an abundance of evidence. So, yeah, he will be... Now, did I say when he'll be back in court? His trial will be starting. He was indicted on April 21st, arrested and charged with first-degree murder, solicitation of and conspiracy murder. His co-conspirators were his mom, Donna Adelson, and his sister, Wendy Adelson, and Catherine Magbaduna, sorry, I'm not saying that right, who was his girlfriend and connected through Sigfrido Garcia and Luis Rivera. I think it was Sigfrido was her ex, and that's the connection there. Yeah. So he's unsuccessful in gaining bond. He will be in jail. I will let you know when he goes. It's going to be a crazy trial. But again, we heard a lot of it already. If you've been following this case, it's kind of locked down. Oh my goodness. All right. I would say if you have a bunch of friends, I wouldn't drink too many of these because my stomach is starting to hurt. I think it's got a lot of acid. But it's fabulous. It's cider with champagne, asti, and a little bit of Fireball to make sort of like a fallish, September-ish Appellini. If it like a Bellini, or maybe it'd be, instead of a mimosa, it'd be an apple mosa. I don't know. That's what we're drinking for week 28. That's what we're pairing with this True Crime Grapevine update. Only the best squeeze for you guys. All right, so like and subscribe, please. And please let me know in the comments what you think about these people. Are they guilty? Are they not guilty? Do you not want to make a guess because you think the court system should play out? That's fine too. Next is a little update on our OnlyFans model. Courtney Clenny, you know, 2 million subscribers on Instagram. I don't know how many million on she's her OnlyFans. I think OnlyFans is shut down right now. I don't know if I think she might still be making money on the old ones. I don't know if they shut down her whole site. They may have. So, speaking of her site and her little pictures, which there's nothing wrong. You get yours, right? I don't have any problem with sex work or, you know, you do you, boo. I don't think it hurts anybody. So on the 6th, there was an evidentiary hearing, and Miss Clinty was trying to, her lawyer was trying to get her phone's videotape and things. She wants it not to come into evidence. Well, as you can imagine, what might be on her phone, her lawyer described it as salacious material, and that it wouldn't be related to the case. And no, the judge denied the request, even though they said, and her lawyer wants limiting of any of the evidence of the adult content produced and on her phone. He wants that limited. He asked for an order of protection. Doesn't look like it's going to happen, folks. I mean, he was saying like this is going to prejudice the jury. Well, again, it's a jury of your peers. They're in Miami, Florida. People walk around half naked most of the day. And what's salacious in Fargo, North Dakota is not salacious in Miami, South Beach. Agreed? Anyway, so the judge, her name is Diana Viscano. She denied the request. So that's what we have to say. She will be back. I think there's a September 14th. Wait, that's today. We will hear again. If you don't remember, she's the woman who had multiple problems with violence, and it seemed to be on her end. They showed a tape of her in an elevator in their Miami condo, One Presidio, I believe it was called, at Edgewater, where she beat up Obenselli, her boyfriend. And then she tried to say it was self-defense, and it appears she's got lots of problems with her case. But anyways, this week was all about keeping out all those salacious content found on her phone, and looks like we're going to be able to see some of that. We've got the Murdoch case. What's new on the Murdoch case? One thing is Mandy Matney put out a couple of new the Murdoch murder podcast, and she was talking about the fact that they had gotten some of those jailhouse calls and they were ready to get another round of them, and they were told they couldn't have them, that there was some problem, that there had been some complaints, and so now they're legal wrangling. And really, South Carolina is pretty clear. They should have access to them, and they did say, we've got them all ready for you. We want to make sure legally we can, because there was a complaint from guess who? Alec Murdoch and crew. So that was sort of an interesting but not unexpected fly in the ointment, but they'll get it because Mandy Matney is not going to give up. On September 12th, on Monday, this is kind of very interesting if you listen to Emily D. Baker's channel when she talks about things about companies, talking about like infringement on their name, as well as defamation. So I've learned about a lot legally from watching her channel, and I highly recommend going to Emily D. Baker. She talks a lot about celebrity cases, but you learn a lot about all different types of law. In this case, what this has to do with is, if you remember, Alex was working with his friends, and when they got a case finished, this is also very similar to the Tom Girardi, Erica Jane out in the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills fraudulent case, where lawyers work, their civil work, they're working for people who are injured, not criminal, but civilly. They get big civil awards, and what usually happens is the law firm takes their cut from their they get a cut from like their administrative costs, like all the filing fees, the fees of the people working for hours, like the people they had to pay out, expert fees. That's taken off the top of the thing, and then of the remaining part, the lawyers get a percentage. Maybe they get their cut first, but then that's taken out, and then the rest of it is given to directly, a check is cut to the actual person who was injured. Now, what fraudulent lawyers do is they just keep all the money and hide it. And what Murdoch did, he did this interesting thing where there is an actual company that lawyers have their clients put their what they were awarded into these security holdings for this law. Like what are they? They're specifically called. I don't know if they're called it was called Forge Consulting, but they were like where if you hear about annuities, like something you get every year, people would put like they put their. It's a way to invest like this huge amount that you got from this award. It's a securities holding place, and that is not uncommon, right? Well, Alex set up a fake one and called it like forged, like just put one extra letter, I believe he did, or maybe just called it the same name. Anyways, it had the word forge in it, which was a real company, and that's exactly why he did it, because when he was moving money, it made it look like he was really putting it into this legitimate securities holding firm when it wasn't. Well, that firm, they're suing Murdoch for using their name, for causing their name defamation, because they said, and it is true, people will only put their money with you if they trust you. Like their business is built on like trust and ethics, and their good name has been sullied. They are suing with a defamation case. So attorney Baraki Sellers pointed out that a simple phone call, they're also suing Bank of America, because Bank of America was the bank that like set up, that was the middleman of this account, and it wasn't quite a pass-through, but Bank of America allowed Murdoch to set up this account called Forge, like whatever he called it, securities, something close to Forge Consulting. And they said a simple phone call, like they're well known in the area, if Bank of America just would have called. So they're suing both Alec and Bank of America. And yeah, that case looks like it is going to be a big deal. And then the other thing that happened is Russell Lafayette. You might remember him. He was the CEO of, I think, was he of Palmetto State? Yes, he was the CEO of Palmetto State Bank. He used it as like a family bank. He's given a November 8th trial date on federal fraud charges in Charleston. On September 6th, the judge loosens his bond convictions and is allowing him to have a little bit more freedom with his family's interest in farms that are in these two other counties. And his monitor is going to allow him to ping his whereabouts. I think it just gives him a little more freedom. He is working with the prosecution. They had this hearing. I don't know if it was a pretrial hearing. He was on the stand for 90 minutes. He admitted to not declaring $300,000 that he made from being this conservator. He admitted to loaning Murdoch $750,000 with property used as collateral that he was aware was already property that was used for something else. He allowed Murdoch's old law firm to repay $680,000 to cover money that he allowed Alex to take out of a conservatorship, which would seem to indicate that the law firm, I don't know if that was recently, if that had to do with the recent case that they covered for the Gloria Satterfield's family. He said that he covered Murdoch's overdrafts for years. He knew Alex was writing the writing check scheme with Eddie Smith. He said he described and said Alex and his family were good customers who would pay back a debt, so that's why he was saying he felt comfortable doing all this. And he admitted to taking money from many of the conservatorships personally as loans, but hey, he paid it back with interest. So basically, yeah, I broke all these laws, but because I trusted these guys and I trusted myself, and don't worry, yeah, it was a crime, but we made it right, so all good, right? Not exactly. And the government was like, well, the problem is he plundered numerous of these various conservatorships, and if you listen to some of the podcasts, the thing is, the conservatorships, I think it's Mandy Matney, of course, she's done the deep dives. It wasn't the conservatorships of everybody, not rich white people. It was always black and minority clients, people that he could take advantage of. So just consider that. At least Tom Giraldi was screwing over everybody. This guy was very purposefully, surgically, only dipping into conservatorships and arranging these things for people who didn't know any better and wouldn't question him based on his standing in the community. In my opinion, allegedly. I have a lot of little writing here. I was taking many, many notes. So now, yeah, he'll be given more freedom. So, yes, he cooperated extensively with the FBI and SLED and the Office of Disciplinary Counsel and bank regulators, but on the state side, they said, however, she told the judge, Lafayette lied many times, or lied at times to the authorities, and he's not really a, it says his wife Sophia spoke about him not being a flight risk. So that his case is going to move forward. He's in big trouble. He's trying to take some responsibility, it sounds like. So they're giving him a little more. He lives in a double wide now, so he apparently is Paul. He's Paul. The beach case that was coming up on October 10th or 13th, it was scheduled for the Murdoch to like he was a co-defendant with the person who owned the convenience store in the wrongful death suit, Mallory Beach's family. So the man who owned the convenience store wanted to be severed from Alex, because he's like, yeah, everybody hates him. Like, he's messed up. Like, he's poison. I don't want my name associated with him. I want my case. I want to go it alone because I will be unduly prejudiced. And yes. Oh, excuse me. The judge, I believe, agreed to that because who wouldn't? So that the convenience store owner's part of the Mallory Beach wrongful death case, because they sold alcohol underage very clearly to Paul, who was using his brother's ID that shouldn't have been sold. They're on trial for part of the wrongful death, and that will happen. That's going to go forward in October, but not Murdoch's part. And they weren't clear about that. All right, we are to the Valo Daybell case. What do I have to tell you about the Valo Daybell case? Okay, so things are heating up because, you know, the trial is going to be in January, and this is all the, it's like, we're going to have the Valo Daybell and the Murdoch case supposedly are all happening in January. It is going to be crazy. I might have to live stream, like do a nightly up, like when we get to these trials, because it's going to be something crazy each night. So anyway, what's going on right now? Well, number one, we found out today that Chad's not going to be, I think there's something happening tomorrow or later this week, and Chad filed like he's not going to be present for it. So we all want to see like Chad and Lori in court, and Chad keeps like bowing out. His lawyers come, but he doesn't have to, and he's like, yeah, I'm good. So talk about, I don't know, trouble in paradise, eternal paradise. I don't know. Are the gods angry with one another? We shall find out. So what's the problem right now? So the camera's in court. I think we're going to hear about that on September 15th, tomorrow. So we should hear about Lori's, lawyer said we can't have cameras in court. They're using it unfairly, blah, blah, blah. And I know Nate Eaton at East Idaho News he has been, and it's true, they've been following the rules. He said, so did, I don't know if it was Law and Crime or if it was Court TV, but the other camera too. They're following the rules. They were not doing what they have been accused of doing. Like, oh, they could listen in to what we're saying in court. And that's not true. Lori made herself look like a fool, and now her attorneys are giving her a very vigorous defense, as one is expected to have. So that's that. But hopefully they don't get it, because as we've seen in this case, there's not a lot of transparency, and we should be able to have cameras in the court. Besides, we know Lori would really love it because she loves the camera, right? We are going to hear on October 13th, we will finally hear Lori Hellis's non-party movement hearing for unsealing past hearings that were closed to the public and motions that weren't done to Idaho's Supreme Court specifications. So what Lori Hellis in her motion, and she has to be a non-party movement, she had put in 3 or 4 forms to Judge Boyce, and he wouldn't even like read them. He wouldn't accept them as filed because he would be like, no, this wasn't written this way. Oh, this wasn't written this way. Well, by the time she was handing in her 4th, I believe, she had also then made there's a panel in Idaho called, hold on, I wrote it down, the Media and Course Conflict Resolution Panel. And she wrote to them and was like, basically, this dude's ignoring me and won't even hear my motion. He's just like brushing it to the side, and it's about something important related to transparency in media, because Lori Hellis is she's writing a book, she's covering this case, so she's like media. She, at the same time she's filing this, magically, Judge Boyce did accept her application for a hearing to be heard about, for this motion to be heard about transparency. And so she is getting a hearing. She will represent herself because she was a lawyer anyways. October, I think I said 13th. Interestingly enough, also, Judge Boyce started to, when he needed to seal something, he went through the legal process. It wasn't like all of a sudden something would show up as having been done. Like, at the end of the day, today, like at midnight, before midnight, it'd be like, closed hearing. Instead, it's, we're going to have a closed hearing on this date. Like, they have to go through a process that's more alerting people that, yes, there is going to be a hearing. Yes, it is closed. I don't know if they have to say the exact reason, but there's only a number of certain reasons you can close things. And in Lori Hellis's in her motion, she was making the argument that it seems as if, and she's not sure, but that it appears as some of these things were heard based on reputational damage to the people like not to anything having to do with the trial or the people being defended that would make them look bad to a jury prejudice them. More like it was just embarrassing things about the people involved, not on trial. So that has nothing to do with the justice being served. And she's right. If that's the case, again, we wouldn't know if that's the case because things we're all just shut down, which isn't right. So Boyce is now following the rules a little bit better, and we will have a hearing. And I think that's good. Because you can't just hide behind the court's robes like little children. Oh, don't look over here. We can do what we... Oh, that's embarrassing. I mean, if you've done something wrong, you're in the public eye. Like that Telus guy. You got to deal with that. Journalists will follow public figures and call them out. If you don't want to be in an elected position or as a part of the government for we the people, then don't do it. Then go private. Don't run for office. Don't run for judgeships. Don't be a prosecutor. Don't be a defense attorney that was assigned by the court. Don't. So anyways, the other interesting thing is the people that were notified that this hearing was going to take place, because maybe, I guess they're going to be talked about or involves their things, was I think it was Chad's lawyers, but and Chad and Mark Means was notified. Ooh, Mark Means. I think probably we'll hear about his crazy talk, because I think his motions were insane. And I think anything he could have said about Rob, what's his name? The prosecutor, Rob Wood, or Rachel, or Lindsay, I think we could handle that. I mean, we know crazy is crazy, right? Anyways, so that's the Valo Daybell case. One more case left. This is the Pike County Massacre. This is the only case that's actually in trial. If you want to follow this, it is live streamed every day. If you're following it, you already know. So far, today was day 3. I can tell you about days 1 and 2. Basically, day 1 was all about retelling what happened, and the prosecution went way into detail. And it is sad. And the biggest thing that people were grossed out about was that Jake, after he shot Hannah in the face, and it looked like she was awakened by noise, so she might have been slightly aware right before, which is horrific. But after he shot her, the baby was making little noises. 4 or 5 day old baby. And he propped up Hannah so the baby could nurse. Which is, and everybody's like, that's disgusting. Like, as if he did it to quiet, just to like shut up the baby. But the thing is, that was one of the things that the investigators knew, that the case wasn't just, like, it wasn't from the grow operation. This wasn't a cartel. This wasn't, you know, people trying, like, a drug related, because those type of people don't care about children. And maybe even if they wouldn't kill them, they wouldn't, nobody would prop up a baby to nurse. And a days old baby, if it doesn't nurse every couple of hours, it could get dehydrated very quickly. I mean, that's so bad. So, I mean, Jake knew about newborn babies because that's what he was trying to do, is get custody of, at the time, I believe she was 3 years old, Sophia, that he had with Hannah. And this was her baby with, I believe the father was Hannah Gilley's brother, if I'm right, Hannah Hazel Gilley. So the prosecution went over, like, each of the people that was killed, where they were killed, how they were killed. She did have everybody has filler words, and she said a lot, to the point where I couldn't listen to her more than 5 minutes. But that doesn't mean that, I mean, she very easily, this is the biggest case she'll probably ever represent, and it was the first day, and there's a lot of pressure with all the attention on it. So, and people said it was hard to follow. It is, day 3 was today. It's still, the prosecution, you know, goes first, and they are just telling the story of the horrendous murder and the first people who found them, how they were all found. The people who found them were on the witness stand. Some chose to be recorded, some did not. So in Ohio, everybody who is a witness in a trial can choose to be recorded or not. So, you know, it's difficult when someone doesn't want to be recorded, because you don't get the whole flavor exactly of what they're saying. But we do have people in the court who are Angelique Levy from Law and Crime is in the courtroom, and she is tweeting, and then she has like a little update at the end. Definitely go recommend her. I like Gigi from Pretty Lies and Alibis, a YouTube channel, and she's also on Twitter. I just like her conversational style and who she is as a person, I guess. I don't know how you sort of feel like people are friends. So definitely, I recommend her as a source. We're still in the beginning of it. The thing that people have noticed is that when there is the cross by the defense, they bring up a lot of stuff about things that we know that have been debunked. Like, they ask each witness, so do you know about the grow operation? Do you know about the cockfighting that was going on? Because at first that was the big supposition, that this had to do somehow with illegal grow operations, like it was somehow related to drugs. It was related to the cockfighting. It was, you know, basically painting the Roden family as ne'er-do-wells and whatever. And then the Wagner family, oh, they raised Frisian horses. They are more well-to-do, and of course you'd want your kids with that. Like, they're setting up this whole subtle thing, I think, personally, of how the Rodins were these people who you wouldn't want your child with and to be raised by because they were ne'er-do-wells, whereas, of course, it wouldn't be strange for people to give their child to the Wagners because they were more well-to-do and blah, blah, blah. That's what I think they're setting up. So, and the other big argument these past couple days that seems to be being made by the defense when they cross-examine witnesses is that George himself, and they said this during the their opening statements, which they were much more concise. Of course, they don't have a lot. They're not trying to tell the whole story. But they were saying basically George was, you know, not like the other ones. He was, you know, everybody else in the family was like bad, but George was good. George, he didn't really want to do this. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. That's not a very legal good explanation because obviously even if you didn't pull the trigger but you knew about it and you never told anybody about it, that's the conspiracy. And as I tell my children, and as I've told anybody, like I always say, don't call me if you've committed murder because I'm not getting involved, because the minute you know about it, you could be considered a co-conspirator because you either have to tell right away or else you did it too. At least that's the way in Ohio. So we will see how this continues more. This is supposed to be a 3-week trial. I think it might be a little bit more, but maybe not. It is going to be interesting. As I stated before, before the trial began, they took all of the jurors on a field trip to all the sites. So hopefully they understand where they're talking about. I think the hardest thing for the prosecution is this is a very involved crime scene. It's an involved crime. But at the base of everything, it is a custody battle where one family, you know, I've said this before, it's the Hatfields and McCoys with a mashup of Romeo and Juliet, but if Romeo's family decide to off all of Juliet's family, that's the mashup. That's the Hatfields and McCoy part. And Gigi from Pretty Lies and Alibis mentioned that one of the family members that was talking about the family that was on the witness stand for the prosecution, she said, oh, he had a real southern way about him and she knows it's Ohio. Let me just tell you, if you don't know, which if you're from Ohio, Great Lakes area, you know. But the minute you get below, like even Columbus area around there in the middle of the state, like the top third is more Midwestern, even sort of more towards, I don't know, very Midwestern. Whereas as soon as you get below the top third, like you get away from the lake area and you get, it's very countrified, very people in Cincinnati, especially down there in Pike, you might as well be in Kentucky and Tennessee. It's the South. It really is. Ohio's a very interesting state. You've got the cities, and in the north, more like Detroit, more like Chicago, that sort of vibe. And then in the middle, like literally in the rural areas, there's some rural areas like the western part of Ohio going towards Indiana, where I did not believe this, but somebody moved there to my area, which is like southeastern Michigan, northwestern Ohio area. And they said that the Klan was still active in, I think it was Paulding County. Ohio has everything. We've got Appalachian, we've got steel towns, that like the Rust Belt. We've got very rural farm. We've got Amish. We've got big city. It's very liberals and conservatives. It's a purple state, or it was before all the gerrymandering. But really, the people, they're all over the place. So, and Michigan can be similar to that. Indiana is more just, I think, very conservative, most of it. But like Ohio, Michigan, it's a very interesting mix around the, like really right around the Great Lakes area. Anyways, So, but Piketon, that area, you might as well be in Kentucky, in the it's really, I mean, but they're people that families live all together. It's very moving towards, you know, like Hatfields and McCoys were real people from Kentucky, and, you know, Scotch-Irish, which my family is part of. It's very clannish. And there's good and bad things about it. I mean, it's great to have your family all around you, generations. It helps raise children. Again, anyways, so that's where we are with the Pike County Massacre trial. It will continue. I might try to do something with just updates about that. And we also, I was just watching while I was waiting for my battery to charge, the beginning of Sins of Our Mother on Netflix. And I think I might do just a special little thing about that. Let me know. Like, subscribe, let me know in the comments. I should probably upload or do stuff a little bit more. So maybe I'll do something about those like active things that are going on that we can chat about. Let me know what you think. And yeah, that was this week's update. I'm sure this will end up being very long, but thank you for listening. Like, subscribe. Anything you'd like to hear more about. If you'd like me to talk more about child development or like the motivations of certain crimes and how we know, like the whole thing about Lori and Colby and that whole dynamic is very interesting, because we know the one thing I've noticed so far about the Netflix show is it sort of glossed over and accepted that, oh yes, Joe Ryan essayed the children, which, now I can't say that Colby doesn't remember things right, but Colby was younger, and I think Lori has said a lot of, I don't know. I think Lori has really influenced their family dynamic, and we do know that with Tylee, there was never any signs of that. In fact, she was seen by people, and the psychologist thought Lori was encouraging Tylee to lie. So Colby was with Lori longer, and we know that most recently, I didn't mention it in the Valo Daybell update, but Colby himself, speaking in relationship to the Sins of Our Mother, he had a little incident, and I believe it was with his ex-wife, but I'm not sure that's exactly what it was, where he was in a relationship with somebody and forced himself on them, and was very upset about it afterwards and didn't really know why he did it, and she recorded him apologizing for it, which was basically an admission of guilt, and he was arrested. But then he was arrested, charged, but then somehow it was all dropped, but without prejudice, which means they can redo it. I don't know if it had anything to do with the Netflix show coming and they didn't want to like undermine that because of it would maybe, I don't know. I have no idea why they would care about the show, but it's a weird timing thing that this just came out, this episode, the first episode, and last week he got in trouble and then it just all sort of went away. But I feel bad for Colby growing up with Lori, because I do not think Lori became crazy when she met Chad Daybell. Lori was unstable before that, and Chad Daybell was unstable, and together they created it was just a bad combination. So, but the narrative seems to be on the Sins of Our Mother Netflix show that somehow Lori was, she was religious, but when she met Chad, and I'm like, oh, girl, no. She had problems. Look, no offense. Jumping from marriage to marriage and running away constantly and accusing everybody of abuse. She accused everybody of abuse. And probably convincing her kids, who knows what she was. You are very suggestible at certain ages, and if you talk about things, it can become reality in your brain, especially if you're a small child. And I think she did a number on those kids, and Colby is an adult who should be responsible for his own actions, but look at where he came from. If you want to talk about Sins of Our Mother, I think there's so much going on there. Anyways, so let me know what you think. What do you think about if Colby's problems had anything to do with like going away, had anything to do with the Netflix show? Do you think why that would happen? Like, who would want not to make Colby look bad? I don't know. Is he going to be a big witness for the prosecution? Do they need to keep him looking clean? I don't know. It's very interesting, though, isn't it? Hopefully Hidden True Crime with Lori Mathias and her husband, Dr. John, will have something to say about that. So, okay, again, very long. This was week 28, and I tried to cover all the biggest cases that everybody was talking about in the interwebs from last Saturday and Sunday, so around the 4th, September 4th, all the way to September 14th today. So, sorry it was so long. All right. Bye.